your kid's behavioral issues might not be due to the behavioral disorder. It could be due to food sensitivities, things that you're consuming, things that the kids are consuming. So first of all, what are the foods that are most likely to cause problems? We got things like dairy, eggs, nuts and seeds, gluten, processed food, food additives, even meat. Even meat can cause kids issues, like my daughter. So what do you eat? What do kids eat? Well, fruits, vegetables, rice, potatoes, beans, lentils, juices, oils, salts, all the healthy plant-based foods. And then of course, you want to try to feed them these other foods here and there and observe if they're affecting their behavior. Give them a couple pieces of cheese. Does that affect their behavior at all? Oh, no, it doesn't, but they said they're really tired and their eyes got heavy. Well, maybe it makes them drowsy. It makes them feel kind of foggy. It's what happened to me when I was a kid. Okay, you give them eggs. Well, eggs were fine. Okay, gave them gluten. Oh, wow, the behavior went crazy. What the heck just happened? Or give them gluten and dairy together and it gets really bad, right? But gluten seems to be just a little bit of something you notice, but when you combine gluten and dairy, oh, now we got a problem. You got to be aware that these foods can cause behavioral issues. I saw it in myself when I was a kid. I got diagnosed with hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. I got diagnosed with depression. All these things are linked to my food, and it was just unbelievable. I got my daughter, who, when I got custody of her, she had extreme food sensitivities. I'd give her meat and she would start having, nightmares. She would start having dark thoughts. I'd give her sugars. She would start being a maniac. She'd start running around in circles. You know what I mean? I'd give her wheat and she'd start like getting aggressive and physically hitting me. So these behavioral disorders can be linked to these foods. Why does this happen? Why does this happen? That's the million-dollar question. It's because these foods have complex protein structures, okay? And a complex protein structure means that if your child's digestive system is compromised even a little bit, they will have a tough time breaking down complex proteins, which are things like your dairy, your casein protein, your gluten, which is your protein that's in wheat, your eggs, egg protein. These proteins, the nuts and seeds, these things are all difficult to break down. And if you're consuming them on a constant basis, then what happens is little bits of these foods leak in through the gut barrier into the blood. And then the immune system has no choice but to get rid of these foods. It goes there and it engulfs them. And when it engulfs them, it remembers the DNA structure of these foods. So it starts to create antibodies. And as you consume these foods more and more often, you develop antibodies, more and more antibodies, more and more antibodies to this food. So when you consume it, guess what? Inflammatory reaction, neurological inflammation, behavioral issues, etc. And this is the reality of it. The kid starts to have a sensitivity to the food. And when they consume it over and over and over again, it becomes a problem. It turns into behavioral issues. So how do you figure out if these foods are causing issues? You got to go ahead and remove the food for a couple weeks. I'm going to stop eating gluten for a couple weeks and see if it helps, okay? And we're going to stop doing the bread thing. We're just going to stop doing the grain thing. We're not going to do gluten. Okay, we removed gluten, did really well. Okay, well, let's try dairy and let's try that. Nothing happened. Try removing these foods and see if you notice any difference. And if you don't notice any difference, try giving the kid a good amount of the food in, a day or two in a row and see if you notice any changes in behavior. If there are no changes in behavior, guess what? The food is okay. But you always want to start off with your conservative foods, your fruits, your vegetables, your rice, potatoes, beans, lentils, things like that, your juices, your oils, your salt. You don't want to give the kid a bunch of processed foods or a bunch of those trigger foods I mentioned. It could be problematic. So thanks for watching, everybody. Keep in mind all the foods I mentioned. Also look into foods that are high histamine. But really the main foods that you got to watch out for are the ones I listed there: the dairy, the eggs, the nuts, the seeds, the gluten, processed food, too much meat, food additives, flavoring additives, etc. Go to my website, endsickness.org. I got hundreds of articles, hundreds of videos on there teaching you how to heal yourself and your kid. Thanks for watching.